Welcome, everybody, and thank you for joining us today for That's Creagh. Tim has once again done an incredible job of enhancing the RealNex platform and building new tools that are just about to be released. Some, I think, just have, and others are just about to. So should be excited for what you're going to see. We're really pleased with the progress that we've made here in the first quarter, and a lot more to come. So I'm Jeff Finn, CEO at RealNex. We're delighted to have you all with us. Please keep coming with your great ideas for how to improve and enhance the platform, and we'll be working with Tim and the development team to make sure we implement the great ideas as fast as we can to keep up with the growing user base that we have and the great ideas that you have. So again, thanks for being here and joining us. Use the chat or question to query us during the session. We'll do our best to address any of the questions towards the end of the session here. And in the meantime, Tim will take it away and show you what's the latest and greatest.
Thanks, Jeff. Can you see my screen,
Yep.
Jeff?
Yep.
Okay, great. I'm going to do a couple of things today. Show you a couple of things that I'm working on that aren't in the system yet, but they will be shortly. And then I've had a number of requests on how to do things that I haven't gone over in years. So I'm going to show you some tricks that you can use that will help you in the CRM side and in the Market Edge side. And starting with searching for properties. In the listing side, people asked what's the best way to find a certain set of properties, a certain area. You can use the filter on the left-hand side, and that's pretty obvious. But you can also use the map, and there's tools on the map. So if you look here on the right, there's these little tools, and they do different things. So for example, you can click this one that looks like a circle, and then just draw a radius in an area that you want to see. And that'll pull up all of the properties that are in that radius that you drew. You can move the radius around the map just by dragging it. You can resize it by grabbing the edges. And it limits the properties to just whatever's in that. I guess I drew a pretty huge circle. That's kind of big. So the radius is very useful, and it's real easy to do. Next to the radius is Polygon. That's just any shape you want to draw. You can draw any weird shape you want to draw on the map. So instead of a circle, you can draw something like this. I don't know why I can do that. And you can have as many of those as you want on the map at once. So if you draw a polygon, you can also keep circles if you want to. Inside of that, we have something that I think is pretty unique to RealNex. And let me go to Las Vegas because I at least know where some of that stuff is. This is zip codes. So if you're looking for properties in a specific zip code, you can do it in RealNex. You have to zoom in far enough to do it. It's right here. It looks like a magnifying glass on a map pin, but it's grayed out. That just means I haven't zoomed in far enough yet to be able to find zip codes. As soon as it turns black like it did there, then you can just click the zip code button, and it'll show you all the zip codes. And then you can just click on the zip code, and it'll automatically query that zip code for any properties that are in there. So those are some nice tools to use just to help find properties along with the regular search over here. Let's take a quick look at Market Edge. This is all stuff that's in the product now. This is not new stuff. In Market Edge, we have added quite a few different filtering mechanisms. If you happen to be in a company, there'll be another filter here for a company. In this case, I'm a solo agent, or I don't have access to the company stuff. Let's say I'm in a company, but they haven't given me access to all the other properties. So you have control over who can see the other properties that people put in. And then you can just use these check boxes to turn things on or off. And in most cases, there's options like status. There's a whole bunch of them. I give you the option to just say turn them all on or all off. Same with property types if you just want to search for everything. Turning these on is immediate. So as soon as you turn something on, it immediately shows you the results. And we've added pagination to it. So if you're one of those people who has more than 100 properties, we show 100 properties by default. But if you're one of those people who has 5,000 or 8,000 properties you've added in here, you can page through them now. And so it won't just be the first 100, you'll have access to all 5,000 of them. If you do a filter, of course, that limits it down to just what you asked for. And it does get a lot quicker if you filter. If you're trying to go through 5,000 properties, and these are your listings, this isn't searching for things for sale. These are your listings. So most likely you'd want to do some sort of a filter, and that would speed it up quite a bit. When you get into the properties, you can do photos, which we've always done. But something that we added that's new is the ability to add YouTube files. So in listings as well, if you have a listing for sale or for lease and you create a YouTube video, you can add that and the video will just play when they click it. Those are in production. So if you're using it for listings, you can take a look at that. Let me show you a couple of new things that are coming. This is March 1st, so it's a week from Monday. One of the new things that we have that people have been asking for quite a while, and other systems have, is syndication. Syndication's on the front page, so you don't have to search for it. We'll be adding as many companies as we can. Our API is done, and a lot of companies are in the process of writing to the API so they can receive listings. But it's simple enough. You just hit connect, and we'll take you to their website. You log in, and that's it. When your listings are syndicated, we'll let you know each listing when it was last updated on that website, and if there was an issue, we'll tell you what the issue was. So, for example, you send over raw land, and one of the websites comes back and says, we can't take this. They didn't put acres in. We'll tell you on the record that you just need to add acres to this record so it can syndicate to whatever website it was. Those will always be visible, and this will have a little number on it if there's an issue, like a 1 or a 2, like syndications, this same thing as this. So you'll always be aware if something's not getting syndicated. And you can turn them off the same way. You can just disconnect once you connect. If you decide I don't want to send listings to that channel anymore, excuse me. Under the presentations, your packages, where you make a flyer or you make a proposal or a BOV, whatever you're doing. I'm constantly tweaking this to make it look better. So this is coming out on the 1st. And it's just the ability to change the way the page looks. So when you're in a page and you've created your own custom page, like this is just a custom page that I created. I took a template, I selected a layout. These are just all different layouts you can use. And then I've also added examples for every layout. So if you're kind of wondering what would I do with 1, 1, and 2, what does that mean? That means that there's the rows and the columns is what it's referring to. So you have 1 row, 1 column, 2nd row with 1 column, and the 3rd row has 2 columns, 1, 1, and 2. And you can scroll through, and I've just given you some random ideas of how you can design. You can put anything you want into these sections. I'm just giving you an idea of what you could do. So you'll be able to look at some examples that I made, but really it's pretty much anything you want to do. Just find a layout that works for you, and then you can decide what goes in every one of those sections. It could be a map, it could be a photo, it could be a paragraph, a bullet list, a title, just a block with color in it, a link, a movie, whatever you want to put in there. It's totally up to you what you put in. And what will happen on these is, it's new, is when you put something into this section, like let's say I put a paragraph in here. When I click on it, I get the menu. And you've always had this. You can center, left, justify, right, justify, change the color of the font, change the color of the background. And when you open this up, you'll get a color splotch like this, but you'll also get your company colors down here. So these are just my company colors, and typically I'm going to pick a company color, but you can pick any color you want. I can make the title separate from the paragraph, or I can make the whole thing change. And what I can do new is margins. This is a pretty big deal because notice how the margin here is way far from the left side. It's this open spot. I'm going to bring it down from 40 points and see how it's moving everything over for me. So you're all familiar with how margins work. You just could never do it before. Whatever margins I gave you, that's what you're stuck with. So you'll be able to now, on March 1st, you'll be able to change all of the margins on every one of these boxes to make everything fit the way you want it to fit, which is, I've been using it for 3 weeks now, and it's really helped, along with the draw on the page stuff. So if you haven't seen that, that's in production. Let's see if I have one of these or something in it. You can go to draw on page, and you just get a set of tools. You can put in lines. You can put in one of these things, these like click me to get brochure, change the color of the fill of it, color, so it stands out, and so on. So it's just a way to highlight something on your screen. And I found some really good uses for it, where I've like circled a section on a building and then put in 3,500 square feet available. So you highlight the building and what's in it. Really very useful. In the CRM side, I've added a couple of neat things. They're small things, but I think they're really useful. I'm constantly putting in large numbers because when I was doing real estate, I was selling properties. So it was nothing under $1 million. So everything was in the millions. And every time I entered something, I had to count how many zeros I was typing in because there was too many zeros and I'm just too stupid. So I added some keys to help me, and they'll be in CRM on March 1st. And it's real simple to remember. If you want to use millions, you follow the number with an M for million. So if I said 3M, it automatically makes it a million. If I was doing thousands, I could do K or T, so 2K. It's a simple thing, but it does make a difference, especially if you're trying to enter a lot of information and you're trying to get it in quickly. Using those letters really helps. Another example might be, say that I'm in the tenant side, and I know what the square footage is, and I know what the rent per square foot is, but I don't know what the monthly rent is. So I got to get out a calculator to do that. So let's show you what's new in coming on Monday. This is now every single numeric field is a calculator. I can click the calculator, and I can click all these buttons, but that's time consuming. It's better than that. You can just say 4050 times, I just hit the times key, 19.15 divided by 12, and then press enter. So whenever I want to do a calculation in a field, like let's say that I'm in properties, and in properties, we have a field for acres, and we have another field for lot size. So lot size is square feet, acres is acres. And I like to put them both in because I never know which one I'm going to use. But I usually only get one or the other. I don't get them both. So let's say that I get the acreage in some sheet I've got, and I put in the acres, 0.66. And I know that there are 43,560 square feet in an acre, which probably everyone knows. I have a tough time remembering that. So when I was a kid, I used to go to a store called 7-Eleven, and I'd get a Slurpee. Some of you may not be old enough to even know what those are, but In my day when I was a kid, that's a big deal. 7-Eleven. So the way I remember square feet in an acre is 7-11. 7 is 43 is 7, and 56 is 11. So anytime I forget how much it is, I just say in my head 7-11, 43, 560. And then I can always put in either acres or lot size. And I do it like this: 43, 560, hit the times key, which is the capital 8, 0.66, enter. And that automatically gives me it. So you'll find a lot of uses for the calculator. And the fact that you don't have to actually bring up the calculator and click it with your mouse, which is really annoying, is really pretty cool. Let's show something else that's coming. It's in the product now, but I've been using it a lot, and so I've enhanced it. And it's called the call timer. If you have a dialer, you can dial your phone. Let me go to well, actually, you can do it from here too. And anywhere there's a contact, you can dial the phone. So I have a phone number. I can just click on it and see it's going to dial it. And it brings up the call timer when I do that. You can also bring up the call timer by just right-clicking on any contact in your system and saying bring up the call timer. I think I'll just show you that. So whatever contact, whatever phone number you've got, there's a right-click menu. Actually, I should probably talk about the right-click menu. I was surprised. I guess I shouldn't be. People don't know it's there. Everything has a right-click menu. You can do it on every single place in this screen. So let's look at this contact. If I right-click, I get a menu that lets me edit the contact, lets me add or view notes, lets me delete them. I can add an event. I can schedule a timeline. I can add a history, start a call timer. That's what I'm going to show you. I can add a link, attachment, add them to a project, add them to a group, duplicate the record. Why would I duplicate the record? Because you have two people in the same office, and all you want to do is take everything you have for this client and change the name. I don't have to do the company. I don't have to do anything else. Just duplicate it, change the name, and save it, and I've got a new client in there. Copy details. When would I use that? That's if you want to send it to the clipboard, or you want to make a V card out of it to send to somebody else. And then columns, which is just changing the columns in here. So let's take a look at the call timer. This is a really, really cool feature. I had it in the desktop, but not as good as this, not even close. You can move it around, so you can still work on the screen. You can still go into fields and put values in, and that'll work fine. And it automatically starts a timer. So it knows when you started the call, and it knows when you end the call. And it automatically creates a history for you with the start of the call and the end of the call. The subject, these have type aheads. You may have noticed this if you're using the CRM, or maybe you didn't know what was going on. When there's a field like this and there's a little bump next to it, you can click the little button, and you can add default values in this list. Just add whatever you want, take out the ones that I gave you, and put in what makes sense to you. So left a message to call me back. This is nice, except it's kind of time consuming because I got to click the button, then I got to find the answer, then I got to click it, then I hit save. It's time consuming. So what I do now is anytime you add values to this lookup table, they're automatically available to you. So as soon as I start typing left, it immediately pulls up everything that has an L in it. And I could just pick it and go on. So if you're using a field a lot, like these fields for office, this is the type of office they buy. If I know what the two-letter code is, I can just start typing it in, and I can hit a comma, and I can type in as many as I want, and it'll just keep pulling up the list, showing me the answers. So anywhere that you want to set these up in your CRM, you save yourself time, and you never enter things wrong, because I'll enter them for you based on what you put in the lookup table. Event type, same thing. Project, the same thing you've always been doing. Where it gets cool is down here at the bottom. Left the message to call me back, but I don't trust him. He's not going to call me back. Nobody ever calls me back. So I can hit follow up, and that automatically creates a follow up based on the history. So it linked it to the right person. It linked it to the right project. It put in what I said in the history. Is all I have to do is just hit change the date. So there's a couple of keys you can use for dates. T for today. So if you didn't have a date in there and you hit T, you'd get today's date in there. Plus brings it up one day at a time, and minus brings it down. There's 7 other keys, but I'm not going to go through them. So what I typically do on a follow-up like this is I'll tell it I want to create a follow-up. I don't need to change anything in here because I'll see that I left him a message because it's already there. All I do is go down here and say 3 days, 1, 2, 3, and hit save. That's scheduling me down on my calendar, in my phone, in Outlook, everywhere that I'm syncing for 3 days from now to call the guy back. I want to be a machine in this case. I'm trying to call a lot of people right now, and I'm trying to get something going, so I don't want to spend a ton of time on this. When I get a hold of somebody and I create a history, I ask them what projects they're interested in, and they tell me, and I put the projects in here. What I can do in the CRM that I can't do in the desktop is I can create a lead right from this history record. So I don't know, let's see, I think I have keys in here. So I'm going to say make a lead. This takes the information from the history record and creates a lead. And you notice it added them to the correct project automatically. Is all I have to do is either put in information about why I made him a lead, or I can just say save and he'll just be a lead, but I won't know why. So what I might want to do is say 2,000 square feet. There's the K. I just used the K there. $1 million. I just used the M there, and so on. So that makes a really nice way for my owner report to go out and have my owner see everybody I'm talking to about his deal without me having to spend 10 or 15 minutes going to another table, another database, and adding the guy all over again. This call timer is fantastic. Let me show you what's coming. This is what's new. If you haven't done any of my seminars, when I was doing real estate, one of the things that happened to me that was a really bad thing, I had a big database. I had 8,000 investors. And what happens when you have a database like that is people get lost. You can't possibly go through 8,000 people calling them every year. Just there's no time to do it. So the people you're working with are constantly getting updated, and that's maybe 50, 100 people. And the other 7,900, you never hear from, you never call, and you don't do anything with them, and you just lose touch. But how do you find those people that you're not talking to so you don't lose touch with them, and you make sure that they know you're still alive, and you find out if they're looking for something? So my answer to that was add a button to every record. So if you look here at Alicia Reynolds, over here on the right, there's a verify button. Is all that does when you click it is it automatically adds to the bottom of the page who verified the record, and it'll change it to my name, and the date it was verified. Okay, so why is that valuable? So, I mean, sort of I see it means if I'm looking at this record, I can see that it was verified in 2014. Right. Nobody has talked to this person since 2014. Somebody should call him. So by getting my team, I had a team of 10, and telling everyone, when you make a connection with somebody, find out what they're doing. Are they still in business? Are they looking for certain types of product, or will they have money? In my case, when will you be ready to buy something? And then hit the verify button. That just stamps them that, okay, we've talked to this guy and we know what he's doing. What I added to the call timer as I'm using this is verify right on the call timer. So I don't have to go anywhere else to do that. If I'm talking to him and I actually get through to him and I make a history and I hit mark as verified, that'll automatically stamp that record as good. And you might say, okay, how do you use it? You use it by sorting the records. So here I'm in contacts, and I'm going to add a column to this list. And this is perfect when I get a new guy. Whenever I'd get a new guy in, or I'd get a student in, somebody that's trying to learn how to do real estate, or just hired a new, I don't know what you call them now. We call them runners, but a gopher. You can add to this columns the verified by, that's who verified the record, which I like to know because some people I trust more than others. So I like to know who verified it and the date verified. And I'm going to grab those two and just move them to the top. Let's see this one right all the way to the top and apply it. Now I have all my records in order by, right now they're in order by name, but I'm going to click date verified. And when I click the heading of a column, it automatically sorts that column by that field. So I click date verified. And now I have a list of the people who we haven't talked to in the longest time. And as I go through the list, I eventually get to the person that I talked to 2 minutes ago. But what I'm looking for is a lead list from qualified people that are in my database. I didn't put them in here as junk. I put them in because they meant something. And somehow nobody's talked to them in 6 or 7 years. It's very common. When you have a big database, there's no way around it. It's just what happens. So I will do it myself if I have time, or if I didn't have time, I'd bring somebody in to do it, and especially a new guy saying, you want to make money? Sort by this field, call these people, find out if they're still around, if they're still looking to do business, update their record, mark them as verified, and they become yours. You could start working with them because nobody else is working with them. So it's a great feature. The call timer, as I said, is in now. The only thing that's missing is the verify button. So what you have to do today is you have to hit the verify button over here, which is fine if you happen to have the contact screen open, but if it's not open, you got to open it. You won't have to do that on the first. You'll be able to just do it straight from the button. Another thing that's new and that's coming out on the first is projects. I've been working with some customers that have a huge amount of projects. We've gotten a lot of people from other software that are moving over to RealNex, and some of those people were really big companies that weren't using the CRM online. They used the desktop years ago, but they weren't using the CRM online because it just didn't have enough. And now we finally reached that point where we have enough, and we have more than enough. We have things that they can't do in some other products that are very, very expensive and not built for commercial real estate. And so in this guy I'm working with now has 33,000 projects. They're a leasing company and they're huge and they have leases all over the place. So when you create a project, let's take a look at a project. There's a couple things you can do to get rid of projects. So while I'm working on it, and this one is say one I'm working on, and I just finished, or something happened and I'm no longer going to work on it. So we have two things you can do. You can change the status, and the status is just you design these statuses, but it's basically your pipeline. How do they move through the deal? They start as a suspect and a prospect, and eventually they either close or they leave. So that's one way you can track the status. The second way is the result. The result will be active if it's an active project, or one of these other things if it's not. Once the project is won or lost or dropped or inactive, you probably don't want to see it when you have 35,000 projects. You only want to see active projects by default. So as I'm working with this guy, he's like, Tim, every time I open projects, I have to hit filter, and I have a save filter for active projects and set it on, but it's one more keystroke every time. So I added 2 buttons that'll come out on the first, active or mine. And so if I hit active, that will limit the list to only active projects. You can turn it off anytime you want, but by default, and it'll remember however you set it. If you set it on, the next time you come back, it'll be on. You can always click it and change it the other way. And if you're on a large team and you don't want to see everybody else's projects that made them public, because when you make a project, when you make any record in RealNex, you can decide if it's private or public or only your team can see it. So you always have control over that part. But in this case, this guy's company, everything is public. They don't have anything private. So I'm seeing a bunch of stuff that I don't want to see, and that's what mine's for. To check mine, it's going to limit it to only the projects that are yours. not somebody else's projects. And that's all. It's a very simple concept. They're just going to be two checkboxes. But if you use projects a lot, and if you're not, you should be. Those are your deals. This ties everything together. It ties the property to the buyer, the seller, or the tenant, or the landlord. And it includes all of the leads for every deal that you're doing. So this is a really critical part that most CRMs don't have, because it's so unique to commercial real estate, and most people wouldn't be doing this. They don't have properties and people and spaces. It doesn't apply, but of course it does in our business, and it's huge. So you'll be seeing that coming out on the 1st. Another thing that I'm just going to do some tips and tricks now that people ask me about, and once you see them, they're pretty simple to do. But if you haven't seen them, just may not know you can do it. I just went through this with a guy this morning. He had properties, and I'm working on mapping right now in the CRM. Mapping meaning you can map your properties, which you all know. It's just another view. Up here at the top left, where I have these 3 icons, the tile view, and they look like that. The list view, and that's a list, and the map view. And the map view just puts them on a map. It's dots all over the place. And what I'm working on right now is the ability in a map to draw a radius, draw a polygon, add zip codes, and then pull up properties that are in that radius, that polygon, zip codes. So if you're out on the road and you want to see, maybe you plotted your contacts, you want to see which contacts are around you because your appointment just canceled and now you got a half an hour and you're in Chula Vista. And what am I going to do? I'll pull up my iPad or my iPhone and ask it to show me everybody within 2 miles of where I'm sitting and see if there's somebody around that I can meet with. So that would be a use for it. Or maybe you just want to find buildings that are in a certain area, certain radius. You'll be able to do that maybe 2 or 3 months. I'm just starting right in on it. But the point is, if you want to map properties, you have to get the latitude and longitude. So how do you do that? Well, you can send your records out to Excel. And there are services on the internet that you can do it for free. Just drop your up to 2,500 properties into a couple of websites, and they'll give you back the lat long, and you can import them back in. So if you have a ton of records, that's one way to do it. But there's an easy way in REA if you don't have a lot of records, and I'm going to show you how to do that. First thing is, in the list view, you should add a couple of columns. How do you add columns? Just right here. Go to columns and say edit. The columns that you want to see all have to do with the address. So I'm going to go to address and I'm going to say show me the address field. That one's critical. I want to see city, state, and zip, but they're not critical. And I also want to see latitude and longitude. If you want to add other fields, you can, but these are the ones that you're going to be updating. So I hit apply and I see those fields. When you're in list mode, we have a button that you can turn on to edit a record. So here, it's right here on the top next to columns. Next to this thing, it says edit off. If I click it, it turns edit on. Now every field I touch will let me edit it. Okay, so here I'm missing the latitude and longitude for this property. As you can see, it's just missing. This is all I have to do to get it in there. Just click in the field and back off one letter. I'm going to get rid of the D. And as soon as I do that, Google comes up and says, okay, which one of these is it? It's this one. And watch what happens when I click that. It fills in everything for me. City, state, zip, latitude, longitude. That's all I have to do to update my properties with the correct latitude and longitude. It's very fast. Click, delete, pick, go to the next one. That's it. You can do that with all of your different records. Like I said, if you have a ton of records that don't have latitude and longitude, you probably just want to create the same list, hit the output button and export to Excel. Then you just copy that from Excel and drop it into one of these web pages, copy paste. and it'll give you back all the records with lat long in them, and then you just import them back in again. It's very simple to do, and it's very quick. Another thing that's useful is before you do this is just to filter, so you don't have to look at all the records that are already set up. So if you haven't done a filter yet, it's, again, very simple. Hit the filter button and say show filters. Then you just put in the field you want. So I'm going to type in LAT. You don't have to go searching through every one of these. Just type in the name of the field you want. Hit tab, and then in this case I'm going to say is empty. So that means they don't have a latitude. But I need a little more than that, because if they don't even have an address, I don't want to see them. I can't do anything. So address tab is not empty. Latitude is empty. It's missing. Address is not missing. I'll get this record. And then I can see how many I have by going to the bottom of the screen. Down here it says you have 126. That's not worth exporting to Excel. That's not worth going to all that trouble. It's 126. I can update these in about 10 minutes. It's that fast. Just hit here, hit backspace, pick. Hit here, hit backspace, pick. You can do these really fast. And then you'll be able to map all of your properties, which is a useful thing. If you're not doing it, it should be. It's really a useful thing to do. Not only for your contacts, but Jeff, we should ask one of the guys that uses these to do a webinar on it. I'm not sure how many people know how useful mapping stuff is, or maybe they don't even know you can map things. I don't know.
They're actually, you answered questions that were coming in. So when they saw the mapping in Marketplace, they're asking, can we do that in CRM? So they're wanting what you're building, no doubt.
Yeah, it's going to be a while. I just started working on it, but I've been using the app also. I don't do real estate anymore, so I kind of have to force myself to go out and use the program. But in the app, not the browser version of this, but the app that runs on your iPhone or your iPad or your what's the other thing, Android. The app lets you take a picture, so you can just point your phone or your iPad at a building and snap it, and it will add the building to RealNex with the photo. So it knows where you're standing, so it gets the address from where you're standing and fills in the property, and then you have access to all of the information. So what I was doing was just trying to see how well does this work. I went to my office. I'm on a street where there's just a ton of office buildings for about a mile and a half. It's all office, that's all it is. And I just walked down the street, pointed my phone, took a picture. Maybe I took 3 pictures, and they all go to the same property. They automatically attach in RealNex. You don't have to do anything, you just have to take the picture. And I went into the building and I took a picture of the license in the elevator, which gave me some information about the owner of the building. And then I snapped a picture of the tenant thing, the roster, whatever you call that thing on the wall, which showed where all the tenants were. So that building got added to my database with 2 or 3 photos, the tenants in the building, and the license information. And I went down a street and I did 40 buildings, and it took me about 2 hours to go through 40 buildings. I own all those photos. Nobody tells me that I can't use them because they put their watermark on them. They're mine. I could put them in my brochures, and they're nice pictures because I took them and made sure they were nice. When a building went up, my assistant, if I had one, I would have just said, the buildings are coming in, open them up, look at the attachments, add the tenants from the roster, add the owner information from the license, and then go to the next one and verify it as you do it. And then we'll come back and we'll try to find out more information about it. So for me to canvas my area, if I was serious about real estate, I would do that. And I guess if you're a tenant rep, you don't care. But in my case, I was selling properties, so I did care. And I had certain areas that were hotbeds. So for me to get that data into my database was really important, because I didn't want to rely on something that was sort of right, but not really right. You know what I mean? You can buy the data, but it's only about 70, 50% correct. And what I know about my buildings is stuff that nobody else knows, because I'll call one of you and say, hey, I'm looking at this building and I don't know what happened 3 years ago when you sold it. And you'll tell me because it's me. And then you'll call me and say what happened on your building, and I'll tell you. That's a lot different than telling a publication that's going to give it to everybody in the world what's going on. So my database was much better than anything you could buy. Yeah, I had to spend time on it, but it was well worth it to have that valuable data. And how often does a building change? Not very often. Once they build a building, they don't rip a floor out or add a floor on sometimes, but most of the time the building's there and it's not going anywhere. The tenants change, sure. The owners change, although not as often as tenants. So you really should spend some time building up your database. You have a great tool to do it. We give you the app to make it as simple as possible to add the buildings yourself. It's just a little bit of time, but you think about it, every building you add, you can probably use for the next 5 or 6 years, the building itself, and maybe the owners too, if you care about that information. Something else that people were asking me about was how do you call people for a deal? So let's say I've got a space for lease, or a building for sale, or a tenant that's looking for properties. I'm gonna put all my leads, all of my product into a basket. So I'm gonna start off with something that's just obvious to everyone, because every single one of these types of real estate, tenant rep, buyer rep, seller rep, landlord rep, have different things, but everybody understands for sale, so I'm just going to use that example. So forgive me if I'm not doing landlord rep or tenant rep or whatever the other ones are, mainly because I don't know them very well and I know this stuff. So what I would do is I would start off by trying to find leads. In my case, the leads are buyers. In your case, they're properties or spaces or tenants, usually. So let's say that I have my contacts up and I'm looking for medical office buyers. So the first thing I would do is I would go into my contact table, and I have a field called office, and I would query that field for medical office. So I've done what I mentioned to you before, created this lookup table with all the different types of product that I represent, and medical office is one of those. So every time I put in medical office, it's going to have an MO in it, that field. So first thing I do is I'm going to filter, and I'm going to say office contains MO, medical office. I don't know if I even have any, so let's see if I get it. Okay, so good. I got 68. Now I want to call those 68 people. And this is where it becomes a problem, because some won't answer their phone, some will say, call me back. It's really hard to manage those people and remember which ones you talked to, which ones you didn't, which ones you left a message for. So what I do is I start by creating a group, and I put all these people in it. Okay, so I'm going to select them all. I'm going to put them all on one page. I have 68, so I'm just going to say, show me up to 300 people. And now I can see all of them on the page. I'm going to check this box, and that just selects all of them. You see how it says 68 selected, and down here it says you have 68. And now I'm going to put them into a group. So this particular listing I'm working on is Three Flags Plaza. So I say add to a group. And it comes up and says the 68 records you selected? Yes, that's what I want in the group. And now I'm going to add a brand new group. I'm going to have two groups when I do a listing. One's called suspects, and one's called prospects. Suspects mean I suspect they're interested, but I don't know. Prospects means they said they're interested. So I got to create two groups. First one is going to be suspects, 3 flag suspects. And I say save. And I say add the contacts. So 68 contacts are going to go into suspects. I also want to create one more group, same name, except I want to call this one prospects. So I'm going to add one more group, 3 flags, prospects. Those are real leads. You can call this whatever you want, obviously. Now, as I'm going through these people and calling them, I just start with the first one. I use my handy dandy call timer. And you notice that as I go through these records, I can see the groups. And this guy's 3 flags suspects, of course, because I just added them to him. He doesn't answer his phone. So in the call timer, I say left a message. I leave him in 3 flag suspects because anybody in suspects means I haven't got a hold of him yet. Alicia answers and says, we're not buying anything right now, or we're not looking for space right now. When do you think you might be? That stuff. I'll put into their record, call me back in 3 years. Here's the important part. I take them out of suspects. Just hit the X. That way, nobody's calling her again about this particular product. This other guy, he stays in there because I didn't get a hold of him. So we just keep calling until we get a hold of the people. Now I call Tom, and Tom says, that sounds like something that we'd be interested in. Take him out of suspects because I got a hold of him, but I add him to prospects. So what I'm doing basically is taking people from one bin, everybody that I want to talk to about this deal, and I'm either taking them out of that bin and just throwing them out, or I'm moving them to my prospects bin. And when I'm finished, there should be nobody left in my suspects bin. It should be completely empty, and I delete the group. And my prospects bin, I started with 68 suspects. Maybe I have 20 prospects. Those are the 20 people I start working with. I create a timeline. I start managing these people, and I have my team working, getting them information, taking them on tours, whatever it is I have to do. And as we're moving them, and they also become leads in my project. I'll create a project for 3 Flags Plaza. They'll all become leads. Those 28 people, not the 68. The 68 are not leads. They're just people I thought might be leads. I don't want to add them until they actually are interested. Those 28 people show up on my marketing report to my owner. So he can see every time I contact them, everything I sent them and what they're doing. And their status changes each time we talk to them. So out of those 28 people, I call the first one, and he says, well, I toured it, and I didn't like the area, and I think it's overpriced. Thank you. Are you looking for anything else? And, I update his record, and then I make a history during that call saying lost, and then the reason it's overpriced, doesn't like the area. So that goes on my marketing report. And don't think those aren't important. The most important thing to me when I got a listing was telling my owner, are you crazy? Nobody's going to pay $4 million for this building. It's not worth $4 million. It's worth $2.8 million, maybe $3 million. Oh no, it's the nicest building in the whole world, and people are going to pay double for this building. So my efforts to get people to buy it, it was very important that marketing report showed this guy dropped because it's overpriced. And when you get 10 or 20 of those guys saying it's overpriced, it's not me saying it anymore. It's the market saying it's overpriced. So do you want to sell it or not? If you want to sell it, you've got to lower the price. People are not going to pay this much for this property. So it's the same for anything you do out there. Representing a tenant, taking 2 buildings, and they're looking for something and he's not willing to do it, then you say, that's just not the market. Here's the market. Here's what you have to do. So the marketing report does more than just say, here's all the good stuff. It also tells them here's all the bad stuff. And as I keep doing this, my list goes from 28 down to 20, down to 15, down to 7, and we start at that point negotiating. Those 7 people are starting to make offers, and you know how that all goes. So it's a really good way to have multiple listings going at the same time and knowing who you've talked to and who you haven't. And if I call Jim, I look at Jim's record and I see he is a suspect in 3 projects, because I'm looking at his record and I'm looking at the groups and I see suspect, suspect, suspect. And I say, hey, we sent you 3 different properties. I'll kill one bird with one bird, 3 stones, something like that. And I can take care of all those projects at once, and I can make them a prospect in 3 different deals, or 1 deal, or no deals, whatever it is. But one way or the other, I'm getting that guy cleaned up. And I see it just because we're working with, say, 3 people in my office are working with them. I'll see that in the groups. Otherwise, I wouldn't remember that, or I wouldn't know that. And I'll just see it right here in groups. So really a terrific way. If you've got listings, it's a great way to keep track of who you called and who you didn't call. Okay, Jeff, I think everybody's falling asleep. I get carried away, and
that's great stuff.
Why do you talk so much?
They're hanging in. We've got. I know you've got more, and there's more to come this month, but you're not sharing. So everyone's got to come back next month. We've got a couple of massive enhancements that will not be out this week on the first, as some of the things that Tim talked about, but in a few weeks, we've got a couple of major updates to come. So be sure to come back and join us next month, and we'll be able to talk about those. So we've got.
I'm not allowed to talk about.
I know.
I'm
we
not
need
allowed
to
to talk about.
everybody. I know you have to.
There's some stuff that is not in the desktop, that has never been in the desktop, that is going to change your life. It's going to eliminate something you're paying for that you don't need to pay for anymore, and it's going to integrate it with the CRM, so you don't have to do any extra work to get the information in. It's going to blow your mind.
So really excited about it. Excited to share. There's a bunch of questions, Tim. So let's try to rifle through them and leave everybody with that tease to come back and look for the release announcements that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. But can you show how to change a presentation from landscape to portrait?
Sure.
Yep.
The presentations are based on the cover page layout. So if your cover page is landscape, your whole package will be landscape. If your cover page is portrait, your whole package will be portrait. So when I'm looking at these pages, let's take a look at this one and see what they look like. Okay, this is landscape. I want to make this portrait. So I just go to the cover sheet, and I have to change my cover sheet to the portrait version of the package. So I go up here to cover page, and I select the portrait version of this cover page. Now everything automatically changes to portrait in the package. You can't have mixed pages in there, or you can if you put a PDF in, but it looks pretty bad when you do it. The one thing you have to watch out for is when you change from landscape to portrait or from portrait to landscape, the photos need to be adjusted. So if you have a page that has photos on it, and I do, you need to adjust them. So I'm going to click on the photo, and I'm going to say, this is the Resize the Photo, and see how it filled up the frame. It was sized for landscape, and landscape is not as tall. So anywhere you have photos, you just have to look, and then just click on the photo, and you can either hit this button, which automatically resizes it, and then you can move it around, or you can do it yourself by hand. But typically, I just hit this button anywhere I have photos. You do have to do that, though, if you change the middle of a project to a different orientation. And something else that you can do in here that is really useful is when you're creating, assuming that you're creating a package and not just a flyer. Flyer, you wouldn't do this, but let's say that you do want to do some analysis information, not a lot, but even a little bit. You can create scenarios. So this guy says, I want to know what the return is if I pay $2 million. And the next guy says, can you do the proposal at 2.7? What I can do is create a second scenario, a third scenario, as many scenarios as I want. And is all that does when you create a scenario is it memorizes all of the different assumptions that you put in for that scenario. So I could have this one package built, beautiful package, and then have 5 people that say, hey, I'm interested in making an offer on it, or I want to lease the space. I can just create a new scenario which keeps all the photos and everything else the same, except the assumptions. So the numbers all come out differently for each person, but you're tracking it by their name. You put the scenario in under Tom Jones and Mildred and whoever it is. So when they call back and want to tweak something, you just pull up their scenario, change the numbers for whatever they ask you to do, send it right back out again. So one property can be used for as many clients as you want.
Tim,
I know they didn't ask that, but that's why.
That's a little bonus.
I talk a lot.
A little bonus. When in the dialer, is there going to be an ability to dial through your cell phone? Is that on the horizon?
If you're using the browser version on your cell phone, you just click the phone number and your phone should dial it. The phone's supposed to dial anything that's a phone number. If it's not, let me know what phone you're using. And
there was a couple of questions on iPhone and saying that just when they're dialing from the CRM, they don't know how to link up to dial from CRM using their iPhone.
Don't know if they're using the app or the browser. I guess they'd be using the app because the browser on the phone would be way too big. Wouldn't be able to tell what it was. You're supposed to be able to click a phone number, and the phones are supposed to recognize it in whatever you're using. So I don't know.
All right.
Yeah, I'm on my iPhone right now. It just held the phone number when I clicked it, so it does it automatically.
When you click on a contact here, it picked up Ring Central, which was your caller. I think what they're asking is there a way to?
No, I'm on the phone. I'm on my iPhone. I just clicked the phone number on the app, and the iPhone came up and said, "Do you want to call them?"
On the phone, it works. I think the question is from the web, from your laptop. If you're calling from your computer, can you call out using? If you've got the VoIP like a Ring Central, it's going to take that. But is there a way to get it configured to work through your phone? I think it's the question. It's not 100% clear.
Not sure what they're asking me there. Yeah, I have Ring Central, so mine works on everything. But
a couple more questions on the follow-up. They want, so when you do that, the call timer, it does create a history record that you left a message or whatever. Right. And what if somebody, they want to just dial, they don't want that dialogue to come up. Is there a way not to have that dialogue come up?
They don't want the call timer?
Right.
I'm creating an options dialog. I don't have it done, but the options dialog will let you say things like, don't show the call timer, always have edit on, don't turn it off, or remember the last way I had it set. So there's about 20 or 22 options in there that you can just go into settings and tell it how you want everything to behave. Right now I don't have it, so you're having to deal with whatever I set it up to do. If you have something like Ring Central, if you have some service, in my case, that's what our company uses, Ring Central. When I go to a phone number, I have 3 options, and this is just part of Chrome. It's just Ring Central has a add-on for Chrome, and when you see a phone number, you get the phone number, you get the Ring Central phone, which doesn't bring up the call timer, it just bypasses it, and you get the text, where you can text their phone. So in my case, if I want the call timer, I click the phone number and Ring Central dials and I get the call timer. If I didn't want to create a record, I can just hit the phone and it will just dial it and not, the call timer doesn't know what you did. But you have to have an app to do that, like Green Central.
Yep.
I will add it though. It'll be, and by the way, when it's in, it'll be under here, personal data, and there'll just be more options on it besides what's your name and your phone number. It'll have these options, just not there yet.
There's a bunch of questions. Let's try to rifle through. So, can just quick refresher on the how do you add a property with the app, and how does it know where you're at?
It just knows by the phone. You know how when you look at drive your car and it says start from your location, the phone knows where you are. So when you go into the app and you add a property, it brings up a screen where you can auto address, and when you click the auto address, it just automatically adds what you're standing. And there's also a button that looks like a camera. When you click that, it takes a snapshot of whatever you're looking at and adds the property. And you can just keep taking snapshots, and they'll just keep adding pictures until you stop.
So as long as you're at the same location, at the same geocode, it'll keep adding those photos to the same property.
No, when you click the camera or click add building, it adds the address where you're standing at that time. Now you're in a property, so you can add pictures and you can walk all over the place. It just keeps adding them to the property you're in. You save the property, and then you got to do it all over again.
Photos to it.
And you can also just bring up a property that you've already got, and then just hit the camera and start adding photos to that property. So sometimes I've already got the property in there. I just wanted to take more pictures.
Got it. So if Greg's bringing on a new team member, he wants to make his records private and then select a group of contacts that he can make available to his team.
Okay. So you can make them private by querying and doing a global replace and saying replace the team with private. That'll make them all private. Then you can select certain ones and globally replace those with the team, or you can just do it manually. When you're in the list mode, I mentioned you can turn edit on. And when you turn edit on, the team can be one of the columns. You just go to columns and add the team, and then you just click in the team, and it'll give you all the teams, and you can pick one. You just go through the records really quickly, adding them to different teams. So either global replace if you have a ton of them, or you just do it one by one in the list view.
Perfect. Will the text message, if you send it out through the extension, be in history?
No, we don't have any control over what it does unless we write an API for every phone system, which we haven't done. So no history yet on text messaging. That's not even something I'm doing. I'm taking credit for it, but it's actually Ring Central that's doing it, not me. Not going to really send that.
I think we can need to see wrap up. So another quick, just an idea around the project with the mine and the active, just to be able to remove closed, because you may want to see everything but closed.
To do that, you just create a filter. So let's say I'm in projects and I have certain things I'm going to run all the time. Hit the filter button and say show filters. Create your filter. And then select, I don't have closed, maybe that was a status, but you pick whatever you want to pick. So let's say lost, or I want everything except lost, I guess was the idea. Okay, so there's my filter. Now I hit save. Give it a name. And here's the critical part. Say add it to my favorites. If you don't do that, then you have to go to filters and load and go through all these dialogues. Hit this checkbox and say save. Now every time that you click the filter button, that filter will be right there on the screen. You just click it, and it automatically sets up your projects to look for just whatever you asked for. You do that with as many filters as you want. The list ends up getting really long, but you can do as many as you want. So once again, you just go to filters, you save it, and when you save the filter, make sure that you check the box, add to my favorites. If you've already saved filters, you can load the filters, hitting the load button, and you'll have an asterisk where you can check and you can add them or remove them from your favorite list just by hitting the star. So now I'm only going to have one filter on my drop down, not three, because I removed two of them. So it's really simple to do. Everybody has their own filter button, so they don't have to see other people's filters. And you can do that for every table. The same with columns. If you have a couple of different formats you like to use for columns, like let's say I export records out to a certain service and they want certain fields, when I create a column list and save it, I have that same little star where I can add it to my favorites. And I'm going to save, and then when you hit the button, all your favorites will show up right on the button, so you don't have to go anywhere else to implement it. Same with reports. It's same everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere. If you have certain reports you like, you add them as favorites.
And they hang on.
When you hit the report, when you hit the report menu, see, that's a favorite project list. I don't have to go through all those screens anymore. I just hit project list and it sends it out.
On the call timer, how do you set the default? Is there a default event type?
I don't know if I have a default event type. I do in the desktop, but I don't think I ever implemented that here. That'll be on the options thing.
Okay.
You can set up your default team, but I don't have anything for event types yet. It's just, I think it's always phone call.
And second, on the call timer, will there be an ability to click quick finish with no history?
On the call timer.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why would you, when you're creating a history, why would you say with no history?
Well, I think we have
the
that
call
on
timer the call timer is a history, so why would you create a call if you're not going to save it? I'm not sure I understand the question. But when you hit call timer, it's creating a history record, so it doesn't make sense to say save it without a history. That's what it is.
It might be similar to the one that's asking for, that not to pop up at all. So I think you've got that covered in the configuration options that you talked about.
Yeah, I'll have to add that configuration thing sooner than later. If you just want to create an event for the person, you don't create a history. You just, when you right click on them, you just say add an event. That just creates an event without any history.
Then there's
where I think they're getting confused is when you have an event, you can say make the event a history or make it finish the event with no history. But these aren't events. The call timer is not something in the future. It's like making history right now.
History as it happens.
It's different thing than an existing event.
And then last idea is a shortcut to dismissing the scheduled phone call. Just want to delete an event. Is that a right click option? Could it be?
Yeah, if you have an event for somebody, either from the dashboard or from their record, you can right click on it and delete it, or you can right click on it and finish it with no history, or you can finish it with history, or you can finish it where you get the history dialog and you fill it in. So those options are all part of the program.
Perfect. Well, went a little bit long. Appreciate everyone hanging with us, and Tim taking the time to give some extra advice and direction and your tricks of the trade that you were able to share with everyone today. Some great things that are hidden. I think that really powerful ways to save time and make data entry even faster and make use of the system even more powerful and beneficial. So thanks for the advice. Thanks for the great work in developing the product. Can't wait for the releases to come this month and sharing a lot more with everyone the end of March as we come back together for the next session of That's Creagh.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody.
Great
Thanks.
afternoon.